Veganuary. Vegan? Okay. How you doing, guys? Koji here, ComplEat.com. This is the Veganuary podcast, where every second day we bring up a new subject around veganism, health, environmental, and ethical side. Today we're gonna jump in more in the ethical side. If you want to see the previous episode, I'm gonna put a card up there, and you can go into the playlist and play all the episodes what we have so far. So today, what I want to talk about is there's like a little debate or argument, which is better for the environment, to consume local products, including local meat, versus being vegan but eating import fruits and vegetables like banana, orange, and other product which doesn't produced locally. So you have to, what the environmental risk is the trucks which is bringing the food into your town, right? So yeah. But that's a big environmental factor to grow the fruits and vegetables somewhere else around the world and then deliver to your local town.
That's a lot of transport.
Yeah. So is it any better for the environment to consume maybe a lower amount of meat, because it's just a little healthier and obviously less animal suffering? But if you just want to focus on environment, is it better to consume local meat and fruits and vegetables versus being fully vegan or being vegan rather than plant-based and not produce meat? And I know you get a number, so
it's a very complicated question to ask. There's one thing that I would like to address that I think it's really important. When we talk about sustainability, we should not be talking exclusively of the environment, as in emissions like the ozone layer or global warming or biodiversity. If you talk about sustainability, you should be including other factors such as economic and social factors, for example. That's the idea of sustainability, because if we do something that is really nice for the environment, but then we are enslaving people somewhere in the world, it's also not going to be sustainable, because, well, definitely not for them, and hopefully not in the long run, because hopefully those people are going to end up revolting or trying to get out of that situation, or someone will help them do that as well. So to think about sustainability, we have to think about a lot of things. I don't know, like 3 months ago, I was in a webinar, very, very interesting webinar, that was talking about the biodiversity strategy of the European Union for 2030. And they were including precisely a lot of people that were either belonged to indigenous populations, mostly in Africa and South America, which are the areas most affected by these factors as well. And they were addressing a lot of these things. So that being said, when we talk about sustainability, we're also talking about that. And as you well said, now going back to the core of our theme, when we eat things that come from very far away, there's some environmental impact that must be considered, which is transportation, as you said. It's probably one of the main ones. And then the industrial production of those whatever products for food is massive, and it also has a lot of not only emission problems, but also, as we talked about this in previous podcasts, lots of risks of underground water contamination, mainly in the meat production, cattle raising, and loss of biodiversity, deforestation, which in turn is also going to aggravate the already being produced emissions because carbon is not going to be as much absorbed with less trees and so on and so forth. And offsetting or planting new trees is not really a solution. First of all, many of them end up not surviving. New trees do not absorb carbon as ancient woodlands. So it's something that is more of a strategy to be able to unblock economic goals, because you say, oh, okay, if you let me deforest that part where I want to plant, then I'll plant whatever trees in this on the side of the highway for I don't know how many miles, hundreds of miles, or I'll plant it somewhere else. That might not work at all. But anyway, so there's a lot of things to consider here. One of the things of being exclusively vegan, one of the things that people argue against being exclusively vegan is that, one of your arguments is sustainability, but indeed you have to eat a lot of things that come from far away. Yes. However, if everyone starts eating local meat, there's not going to be nearly enough for everyone.
Yeah, that's what's going to be my other question. So there is such thing as local meat everywhere around the world, because meat production, animal farming, like industrial, you need a lot of space. Yeah. And it's not going to happen close to your city. Everywhere around the world. There are some places where it's better for that, like ranches in America, some places in England as well.
Here, countryside,
but it's not gonna. It has to be transported anyway.
Yeah. And if we have around Brighton, for example, all of those countryside stripe and you can see a lot of sheep and cows being grazing there and so on. But if everyone in Brighton started eating meat, if everyone in London started eating meat, all of the East Sussex meat would probably not be enough. And you already, even with this local meat, you're already eating most of the meat that meat eaters are eating are coming from somewhere else in the world. So the issue with that argument is that you're really not comparing two things that are comparable, because you say, I prefer to eat meat because otherwise you'll also have to import bananas and avocados. You are importing meat a lot.
Yeah, okay, but my thesis or my argument is, if someone knows that they can locally source meat, is it better than being vegan but source your food from everywhere else?
Not necessarily. So there are a lot of advantages with consuming local. Yeah. So first, you are consuming whatever the country gives you. You're not changing nature per se, supposedly, and you're not having the transportation. But still, to produce a lot of meat, to produce local meat, you need that big amount of land. So if you want to cut the transport and in the future have more food for everyone locally, you can still use that land to produce plants, and you will end up producing more food than the meat you are able to produce, because you need the space to raise the cattle, you need the space for the cattle to graze, and they eat a lot. They are huge and they only eat vegetables. So, I mean, supposedly or organically raised, but obviously that they're going to give them other types of foods with supplements and all, but still they have to graze because they need to be eating all day long. Yeah. So even if you give them their food, like those foods that they produce industrially, you also have to have some space for them to graze. So it's a huge waste of land. That being said, it doesn't mean that eating local meat is absolutely terrible. So I'm gonna now start talking about like the environmental assessments, and I was reading a report made by the FAO, which is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, in cooperation with the network Food Climate Research Network. It includes the University of Oxford and other departments regarding food and sustainability. So it's very complete and it's very, very well made. And albeit it does not recommend that the whole world becomes vegan, it does recommend that everyone becomes plant-based. That's one of the overall conclusions of the study. So you can still consume some local meat, some local fish, if you have it, but the overall conclusion is that, you know, the bulk of your diet should be plant-based. And then obviously, if you want to eat exclusively local, which would be the ideal, as we are nowadays, people might need to eat some meat and fish, because we don't have bananas and avocados and all this quinoa right here next door either. So, however, even with that, you know, little highlight of information, they still recommend, and this was done, a study done in several countries, including, I don't know, Germany, Qatar, you know, several, and all of them, in average, they recommended to reduce your fish and meat consumption to twice a week, 3 times a week in some cases, in some countries. Either studies about health and studies about the environment. So one of the conclusions, one of the things that they mention in the study is that as well, diets with low environmental impact are directly correlated with health, with a better health, with more healthier diets. So it's a win-win. Yeah. I mean, if you want to sort yourself out in terms of being stronger and healthier for a longer period of time, and at the same time tackle the environmental crisis, and at the same time tackle social and economical issues that, you know, the international trade of food is one of the main things that impact on those people. Thank you. On, you know, that the population that are being overexploited by these industries. Not only food, other industries as well, but now we are focusing on food. So if you want to tackle all of these 3, you can eat plant-based and local. Now I'm going to add one of my ideas and one of my theories, because of what I've just said regarding how much space and how much time you need to grow, you know, cattle and actually grow meat. One of the things that I think we should do would to be in a very careful and planned way, because obviously we don't want farmers to go out of business. We want to provide them with a fair and planned transition. One of the things that I would recommend, that I would try to invest in and try to maybe join a team, to interdisciplinary team like economics, sustainability, environment, food, nutrition, all of these things. I would try to form a team to plan a fair transition from this amount of cattle raising to plant raising, to bigger diversity of plants, and I would do that through strategies that some countries are already applying, such as, I call it smart agriculture because I associate it with this smart building construction. You can have basically greenhouses, but built in a very smart way. The buildings are built in a way that will minimize the waste of energy, minimize the use of energy, minimize the waste of heat and light, for example. And obviously, if you couple this with you will use stacked shelves for plants, you can save so much space, use so much less land. And if you couple this with using energy from renewable sources, you're gonna have so much, you know, advantages in terms of both environmental and economic. You can develop the local economies much more. People can start having more control over the things they want to buy, because they have more diversity locally. So we don't have to buy products from Ghana or whatever that we can't have information, or it's very difficult to access information about either the environmental impact of that industry and how are people being treated, how are their the values of those industries in terms of labor and etc. So there's a lot of problematics, and I still think that this type of solutions, investing in smart plant cultures, would be even better than just leaving everything as it is and just change to a more local.
I think local farming is going to be even more sustainable as reusable energy getting cheaper and cheaper. So if we can get solar or wind energy where you can produce electricity and you can grow vegetables wherever, you can get any type of rice, grains, fruits, vegetables locally. So you don't have to get banana from Africa. You can grow your banana here on the lands. It's the solar energy or the electricity getting cheaper by solar or wind or whatever power you have around your your local city, country, whatever. Then it's gonna be even. I'm seeing like they trying to experiment growing rice as well, and then if they can bring the rice price down in the next 10 years, I mean growing and selling, because rice is cheap to sell and cheap to produce, but it takes a lot of water and land, so you need something, places like China where it's a lot of water lands to be able to produce rice all year round, and they have to rotate the land as well. And there's not many places on the world you can do this. China is one of the biggest, the best land they have, and they can do this rotation, so they can do it all around, year round. But if you can do this locally under heat lamps, and they can grow and modify rices, so they can grow like there is shorter rice, leaves of plants, but they produce more rice. So we can, if they can sort it out and bring the cost down. Some places like the electricity is cheaper, where there's like more sun, and so they can produce more electricity through solar. But again, it's like not everywhere in the world. But if it's getting cheaper and cheaper, and solar energy, also if the trucks become electric, there's not going to be a CO2 emission when the truck bringing food. So that's going to be a transition. So as technology grows and we can start growing fruits and vegetables locally and grains, then everyone, I think we're gonna go towards that goal rather than, because there's not gonna be enough land.
It's such a complex thing to address though, because even doing all these things, we shall build smart buildings, and I really insist a lot on this, but it's because even to build a solar panel, there's a heavy environmental impact to build a solar panel, right? Because they have to mine the main metals and materials to use on the solar panel. So everything has an environmental impact. It's really hard to manage these things. But obviously, it's still better building it and then try to use as many energy as possible, so you don't need as many solar panels as well, and so on. Anyway, and the places where you have more energy, the place where you have more wind, you do also some wind turbines, and then you can, like, if we can find a efficient way to store energy and then share it between different towns, basically put it on the grid. There's one final thing that I would like to say, because there's a lot of and it's good. I mean, it's very good that this is a general conversation nowadays, because I see more and more articles, for example, even in mainstream magazines and journals. I was reading one in the Independent a couple of days ago. This girl comparing precisely what would be better, to become completely vegan or to consume local, and she was consuming local, and she was raising awareness for very important things. Some food trade is more like a traffic, really. There's a lot of mix up because they come from so far away. It's really hard to control these things, and there are lots of organizations, if I can call them that, not as legal, like maybe masked of legal stuff, or they have like institutions to launder money and stuff like that. But like basically, I don't know, drug cartels, I don't know, people trafficking. There's a lot of things mixed up with everything that means transnational trade and international transportation. And if everything is produced locally, as she was consuming also meat, but everything locally, so she felt good, she was not contributing to those type of things, and additionally also not to the environmental crisis by not, paying for the transport of things that come from far away. That's very good. However, one of the things that's why it's so complex, because there are layers to it. And she went medium deep, but she didn't go deep, in my opinion. It's a very nice article though, but one of the things that she does not consider, for example, is that even to create local meat, you need to give them supplements. Where do those supplements come from? Plants. Where are those plants being planted? Where are those supplements being, produced massively? Not locally. So you might as well just take the supplements instead of eating that meat.
Yeah, exactly.
And you would, instead of using those lands to create to raise the cattle, you use those lands, or half of them to produce plants, half of them to produce the supplements. You can do like small artificial lakes and water bodies and create how do you say this, seaweed, algae, and bring supplements from there, and without having to kill the fish, without having to kill the cattle. So these things, that's why it's really, really hard to answer that question.
Yeah, it's really with 100%. Like, I think the only way you can eat truly locally, if you have a little farm and you're just producing for yourself and your family, and that's it. If you have that kind of system where you have, I don't know, one cattle, and then you can feed it and they'll give you, I don't know, milk, and then after 5-10 years you got it, like it dies natural death and you eat it, things like that. But it's other than that, it's like it's not sustainable too.
That's why I think this urban, efficient, smart
agriculture, in the urban environment, it's never gonna be local. Yeah. If it's coming, if you want to raise milk in if you want to raise meat or animals in urban environment, it's never gonna be local. Yeah, no, because there's not gonna be enough for everyone. Whilst it's what I mean is my overall conclusion is, as things are right now, maybe a combination of mostly plant-based and some meat would be a little bit more sustainable. But if everyone starts doing that, then there's not going to be meat enough for anyone at a local level. So still. Yeah, long run is not the best. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, thank you very much. That was very thorough. If you enjoyed this series, give it a thumb up. And if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. You can watch all the episodes in the playlist. And we catch you in the next one. Drink complete. Drink complete.